Is 10.99. It's by Hayley Simpson. Hayley, you need to put your name on first on the title page. Interior, Murray's Drug and Grocery Store Day. A tiny grocery store, a feeling of years caked into the floor, is busy with a handful of customers milling around. The same people have milled around here for years. They grab the same bags of 3 for $6 pasta they always have. At the end of the aisle, an elaborate Rube Goldbergian structure is being built.
One more?
Bernice Ellis, late 20s, overachieving, bubbly loner, places one more yogurt cup on top of the structure. She then stands back and admires the yogurt display. Hanging from the ceiling, small coolers hold bags of ice. Fans push the cold air down onto the giant pyramid of yogurt. It's impressive. Even the milling patrons stand around it until they notice Bernice. She smiles at them. They all shuffle off.
He's going to like it.
What the hell is this?
Yogurt display.
Yogurt display? What did I ask you to do?
Mop aisle 3.
Mop aisle 3. So where's your mop?
I don't.
You don't know.
Patrons act like they aren't listening.
Aisle 3 needed a bit of sprucing.
Take it down.
It's so big.
It's not OSHA approved. Take it down.
Actually, I studied the OSHA guidelines to check. They don't say anything about display structures. Also, with no cables on the ground, correct power wattage, and optimal temperature for the dairy product, this is hitting every policy and guideline there is out there.
Really? That's so great.
Yeah, you can see it's an impressive display.
Oh, cool.
And with yogurt sales down, this will, oh, you don't actually care.
Nope. Down now.
Yep. Okay, boss.
Greg supervises Bernice as she takes off the yogurt by the armful and awkwardly puts it into the standing wall fridges. She keeps dropping them, but Greg refuses to help. Instead, he tosses yogurt cups to Bernice terribly.
Faster.
Yep. Yeah.
One of the yogurt cups that Greg tosses taps a hanging cooler. A tiny sliver of ice falls out of the cooler. It lands on the floor underneath Bernice's foot. Bernice slips on the ice, falling over into the half-deconstructed pyramid. It topples over and explodes yogurt all over her. She even slides a bit further to fall into the shells full of non-dairy creamer. The powder coats her yogurt-covered body. This is the worst.
I'm fired.
The power cables fall from the ceiling and light the remaining display on fire.
Yep.
Cool.
Bernice picks herself up and heads for the exit.
Bernice.
He tosses a mop to Bernice. They stand in silence for a moment.
Mop aisle 3.
Mop aisle 3.
Bernice starts to mop up the yogurt mess. She grips the mop handle so tight her knuckles are white.
Greg, you're very managery.
I know.
Also an asshole.
Title 10.99. Exterior Ellis Bakery Day. Bernice tries to wipe the yogurt and non-dairy creamer from her head and neck. It's getting sticky and dry. Across the street, there is a building. Its bright red and white signs charred from an extinguished fire. Its windows boarded up with thin plywood. She looks at it for a moment. Her forced smile fades and her stomach clenches. Under the uncapped sign, Ellis Family Bakery, a ragged banner hangs loosely under it. It reads Grand Reopening. Cars and people pass by. Seemingly everyone is looking at her. Bernice feels kicked when she's already been down, buried, reanimated, kicked again, humiliated, and then put down again. So great. Exterior Bernice's house day. The grass of the mid-80s house is dead. Patches of it are trying hard to remain alive, but for the most part, it's dead. The mailbox is stuffed. She looks around trying to find her newspaper, but it's nowhere. Across the street, a moving van is being unloaded by a pack of burly men. Bernice notices Obsidian, late 50s, wickedly beautiful, effortlessly deadly, laying on a lounge chair with a drink in her hand. Bernice waves. She waves back. A gaggle of neighbors nod to each other. They grimace and signal to one another. They all converge on her.
Mr. Williams, Mrs. Ramos, Mrs. DeRusso, Mr. Zhao, you all look wonderful this afternoon.
You as well.
Thanks,
very
dear.
nice of
I
you to say.
know.
It's very nice of you to say.
The gaggle quiets, then all look to Bernice.
We need to talk about your house.
It's just that it's making the whole neighborhood look bad. Your house is a dumpster fire.
What she said.
It's tense, but Bernice forces a smile.
Your concerns are heard. I will work on them.
The lawn.
The weird gadgets. The paint job.
The gaggle looked to Mr. Zhao.
Oh, my line. The
dog.
dog. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
A silence envelops the group. No one knows how to proceed from here.
Well, thank you for your suggestions.
They all nod to one another, but no one leaves the porch. Bernice awkwardly bows to them and backs into her house slowly, leaving the gaggle pecking on the stoop in silence. Interior Bernice's house day. Bernice leans back against her door. Her full smile drops from her face. Snorting fills the quiet room. Dynamite sit at her feet.
Hey, lady.
She kneels and the pug licks her face. They are the best of friends. Bernice looks through the mail. There is a postcard with "Howdy from Chicago" in large font across the top. On the back it reads, "Having a zip zap zop good time. See you in 6 months, Mom."
She should just call.
The fridge is covered in the same postcard, all written with the same message. A disappointed smile waves on her lips. Dynamite sits on her feet. It's comforting, like the dog knows Bernice is just trying to keep it together.
I got fired.
Snort, snort.
Yeah, I know. But I have an idea.
Exterior Bernice's house day. The dried grass is the same color of the table that holds a small collection of items: gadgets, generic scenery paintings, old clothes. A hand-printed sign, "Yard sale," crowns the sad-looking party. She waves at all her neighbors who are grabbing all their morning daily catch. Across the street, Obsidian smirks from her porch. She salutes Bernice with a rolled-up newspaper. Bernice's porch is empty. Interior Murray's Drug and Grocery, morning. Swiftly grabbing from the short stack of newspapers, dinging the bell at the counter and paying, Bernice reluctantly stands at the counter.
Bernice,
Greg, I'm looking for a new job.
don't you have the internet?
Yeah, I have internet. It's just, I'm just distracted by all my messages and stuff.
You don't have internet.
I don't have internet.
Bernice opens to the classifieds.
So that was a quick turnaround for the job posting. Very managery of you.
Bernice,
Yes.
out.
She hurries to leave. Interior Bernice's house day. The paper ruffles loudly as Bernice checks the pages for job postings. Nothing. Dynamite chases her tail beside the couch. Exterior Bernice's house morning. Bernice waves again at her neighbors. Yet again, no paper on her porch. Obsidian drinks a mimosa as she reads her paper on her stoop. Obsidian smiles and waves. Empty-handed, Bernice sits at her yard sale table. Interior Murray's Drug and Grocery day. Paper on the counter, money in hand. Bernice reads the classified. Ding.
Really?
I'm trying to find a job.
Good luck.
I don't need it. I have experience and dedication.
Sure.
It's inevitable.
I believe you.
I can be as good of a manager as you.
Go ahead.
Nice new shirt.
Go away.
Bernice leaves. Greg straightens his shirt. Interior Bernice's house day. Next page, snort. Next page, snort. There's nothing. Exterior Bernice's house morning. Same as before. She pokes her head out. Waves. No paper. Obsidian is smoking with a drink in hand. What the hell is happening? Interior Murray's Drug and Grocery Store day. She grabs a newspaper. Greg holds his hand out for the money. Bernice slides it over the counter. It's passive aggressive, but it makes her feel better. As she turns to leave, Pippa, late 20s, piercingly beautiful professional in every sense of the word, enters the grocery store. She's like a character from a Sundance-winning lesbian period piece film. It's like she's even in slow motion. The hair, the hands, her absolutely striking features, all her movements to the tune of a stripped-down version of Watermelon Sugar. Bernice's heart races. Is she intimidated by Pippa or aroused?
Hey,
Pippa ignores her and pays for a few items, including a bottle of isopropyl alcohol.
Good morning, Miss Persky.
morning.
Bernice lowers her eyes and rushes out of the store, hands clutched so tightly that she rips a few pages. Stop. We have to stop. That's page 10. Being strict. Okay, Ian, we'll start with you this time. What did you think?
I just found it very confusing. I couldn't get into it at all. I didn't see anything in these pages that gave me any idea of where this was going. There's so many, it just doesn't seem to have a forward story. And I didn't understand is that Ellis Bakery, did that burn down? Did she burn that down because she set fire to, the shop that she was in, that she got fired from? And why would there be a fire and nobody's taking care of it in the shop she's in? And there's a lot of the bits of punctuation, formatting, grammar really put me off a bit as well. So I just couldn't get into it, I'm afraid. It just didn't work for me.
No, that's okay. Thank you. That's useful. Emma.
Yeah, I had some puzzles with it. For example, that second scene, it said Ellis Bakery, but sort of technically we weren't at the bakery. We were, I think, outside the supermarket, weren't we? And I think perhaps just to be very clear about where we are at the time in the writing. It reminded me in places, there was something that I thought it might be going a bit sort of magico, in that she might be a character who's a bit like, if people remember that film Amelie, where she sort of changed people's lives, because she seems to be able to do things to certain people by charm, and it doesn't seem to work on Greg, or maybe it's going to, I don't know, but yeah, she's and the dog I thought was quite interesting, because there's this little snorting thing with the dog, and I thought, are we going to get a speaking dog scenario here? It was just quite curious. But yeah, just sort of technically I suppose Bernice is described but not Greg, so maybe we could have a bit of that. There are, even in quite a short amount of time, quite a few repetitions, of Bernice and Greg toing and froing with repeated lines, and then we have repeated scenes of, and the next day she goes to the shop and gets a paper and things. And I just wonder, how, whether, I don't know if it's going to carry on like that, or is it going to be just that, then it changes, but whether that would, get a bit like, oh, it's the same thing, or whether they'd find ways of shooting it differently and things, so that, or changing the pace so that it was varied. But, already there's a few repetitions, so I just was curious about how that was going to pan out. What else do we have? There's a couple of funny little bits in the notes. Her stomach clenches, the same postcard with the same message is all over the fridge, and it's just things like, that's a sort of a novelist's eye again, isn't it? Because how can we know, how are we going to see these things? What else do we have? I quite liked it when Mr. Zhao says, oh, my line. And, you kind of think, oh, that's interesting. And these people are all sort of players. Is it like, I don't know, the Truman Show or something? She's got lots of scenery flats that she's trying to sell. I would like to know more. I'd like to know what's next. And I wonder whether it really does depend on us really buying Bernice, whether we really have to fall for her as a character to keep it going, and how that's going to work throughout the length of it. But yeah, I'd be curious to know, what's happening next.
Perfect. Thank you. Catherine.
Yeah, I find it, I'm assuming it's a series and it's based around Bernice. It came across very strongly as a following her through her life, a very odd life by the looks of it, or slightly imagined life. I'm not sure. Again, with the Amelie thing, I'm agreeing with you there, Emma. I didn't mind the repetition stuff. I thought that denoted a relationship between the two, that they were very aware of that, they do that all the time, sort of thing. So it came across as a thing that they do. But yeah, the comedy, there was some nice comical bits in it. The characters were interesting. Again, with that's my line bit, could just be that that's another repetition thing, that they keep having to tell her these things, or it's to do with the Truman thing. That's, yeah, another interesting idea that I thought of. It was intriguing. The snorts weren't always clear that it was the dog. So that would be nice to know if it's her snorting or the dog snorting, because that was a bit like she's turning a page and snorting. Is she snorting at what's on the page, or is it the dog? Or, the characters, when you've got one character saying the same still speaking, it should be continued or in the same sentence. It shouldn't just be a separate dialogue piece on a script. One thing that really confused me right from the start, though, was how do you be a bubbly loner? I couldn't. I was like, okay, so half of the sentence denotes one type of character, the other half denotes a completely different one. So that was interesting. I don't know if that was on purpose or just perhaps not so greatly expressed. I'm not sure, but I found it intriguing. I thought there was some good visuals in there, and the characters were very interesting. It needs more, as from a script point of view, it needs more description of where and what we are and where and what it's going on, because otherwise it could be a bit misleading without a synopsis. It's tricky. So yeah.
Thank you, Stewart.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I quite enjoy this and like this because it was one of those things, one of those scripts where it was not much happens, but it's one of those slow burn things. Picking up on what Catherine said about being a series, I could see this very slowly progressing, and you're thinking, why am I kind of watching this? Because it's a bit dull, but actually you're intrigued to find out the little bits that are happening. And I was intrigued straight away by the character of Bernice, because this building this yogurt mountain in the shop that collapsed, and I enjoyed and found that quite funny, just because you can. So I enjoyed that, and then her, and sort of contrasting with that with the sort of drudgery of her home life and this quite lonely life because her mum's away having a great time, and looking after herself with the dog. So I kind of got lured in. It was one of those kind of not much happens, but actually I'm really interested in this. So yeah, it's interesting how Ian saw something completely different. So yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how we all see different things and hear and perceive different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, great characters. I think you could do a lot with.
John.
I loved it. The humour and everything. I was laughing internally, obviously, because we were being recorded, but I was laughing so loud at that. I love the interaction between Bernice and Greg, because there's definitely history there. You know, they've known each other for a long time, and the way Greg talks to her, she just obviously messes everything up. She's got the inverse Midas touch. Everything she touches turns to shit. But I just loved it. You know, I mean, the character of Pippa and things like that. This is obviously a series. It's very obvious a series. The only thing that really intrigued me, apart from the usual, the punctuation, where are we, when are we, and all that stuff, what the hell is 1099?
Yeah.
I mean, is that the number of her house? Is that the amount of jobs she's had since she's left school? Is that how often she rings? How often does she ring the fire department? I got Ellis as, I think the way it was, the reaction it was having with her, I got that the Ellis family bakery thing might have been her parents. You know, like the family thing, because it says Ellis family baker. It might have been that. That might have been her first job. You know, she burnt down her parents' bloody bakery.
Yeah, we don't know, do we? That's
no, exactly. But I loved the humour in it. And like Stewart says, I think it's got legs. I think this could, it's one of them ones you're sucked into it. You know that it's banal. You know that these are all weak characters and they've got nothing endearing about them. But you love every one of them and you're sucked into it. And you just want to know, what are they going to mess up tomorrow?
It reminded me a little bit of I don't know why it came into mind, Ugly Betty, that series, where she's kind of she's got so much ambition and belief in herself and hope, but she's just crap at everything kind of thing. So she's lovable in that way, you know. So I like the characters. I think it could be quite amusing. But
yeah, I get that Ugly Betty reference. Yeah,
I wanted to know who the Obsidian character was and what she was going to end up. how she was going to get involved.
Yeah.
Sort of across.
There was a
street.
couple of little
Just
hints. So is she
I mean,
actually in love with her, perhaps, or something?
Yeah.
That'd be a
Well,
nice twist, actually, because that doesn't often
I
happen.
mean, from the description, you know, says she's stunningly beautiful. She's in her 50s and everything. You know, was she?
Yeah, but she says that is she worried or attracted to her or something like that?
No,
So
no, that
it's-
was
I think that's
Pippa.
the one at the end, isn't it?
That's Pippa, where she.
Oh, sorry.
she
Oh, I
worries.
got them confused. All right,
Yeah.
sorry.
Pippa is the one where she worries if she's terrified or aroused. But oh, lovely. Well, sorry, we just got pouring down rain. It's just
There's quite a lot of formatting issues.
yeah.
I love the dialogue. I think the dialogue is brilliant, snapped along, and I think there's definitely difference between the characters, and that's great. And I didn't mind the repetition because I could see that that was actually building to something. So it's, you know, and it's also time moving on, as it were. And something slightly different happens and she's learning from it each time. It's like, no, okay, you know, you can almost see another scene with her actually walking past the door, glancing at him and going, okay, and carrying on, you know, that's kind of a running gag. But yeah, I think a lot of the text, the action is more novel than script. There are a couple of places where it's not clear who it is, like in page 4, the scene Ellis's bakery. You just need to be aware when you say she and you've made a para break, that's a different shot. So we actually need a name at the start of that shot. People sometimes when they start writing, they don't realize that a para break is meant to mean another shot. It's not just a let's break this paragraph up because we've got too many lines. It's actually meant to be, you know, this is one shot, that's another. And that's why at some places, like when she's looking at the bakery through the window, you could actually have her point of view, Ellis's bakery through the, you know. So those things start to give clear instructions to the director more than anything about how you envisage it being shot. But it's a fine line between doing too much of that and not, you know, not enough. Because if you do too much, then people start saying, oh, you're trying to direct it. And then they hate you for that. So it's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
I got a very, with the Obsidian character, I got a very kind of scissor hands, mid-America, Tim Burton, pastel-colored American houses in my head, yeah. Thinking, and it's a bit Truman Show as well, that kind of, you know, suburban sort of big expansive lawns and people shouting, hi, how are you? You know, which I quite like. But yeah, I'd like to know what's going to happen with that. I think it's got legs.
Yeah. I really like the interaction between the characters. They were quite well, as an actor, you could definitely play it straight away.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
definitely.
Very well written dialogue.
No, absolutely.
They really do bounce off each other, which is
do.
really good.
Yeah, and it's hard to write dialogue like that.
Yes.
It's hard to get it so you've got to have an ear for the dialogue. So
they've had an instant rapport with each other. Whether it was a good rapport or a bad rapport, you could still get a feeling of nuancing between them. Yeah.
I do like the way that the Obsidian starts. I do like the way the Obsidian starts the day with a mimosa or some alcoholic drink in her hand. She's sitting on the porch reading a newspaper with booze.
But is that newspaper really Trisha's newspaper? And it's
I think so. Yeah, I think she's nicking it each day, isn't she?
Right.
Possibly.
She
That
salutes
might be
with it.
why she waves at her. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, sucker."
Yeah, that's what I thought anyway.
Yeah. Hi. Got your news.
Got your paper. Maybe Obsidian is actually her mom. You think about the age. She's in disguise and she's not in wherever she's meant to be at all. She's just over the way drinking and having a laugh.
That's why she doesn't call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys.